David Weiss, the U.S. attorney investigating Hunter Biden, the president's son, is now speaking out. This follows two IRS whistleblowers alleging interference in the case. One of the agents testifying that Weiss was prevented from bringing federal criminal charges against Hunter Biden in two other districts, Washington, D.C. and the Central District of California, by two U.S. attorneys appointed by President Biden. But Weiss, in a letter to House Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan, writing, quote, "I have been granted ultimate authority over this matter, including responsibility for deciding where, when, and whether to file charges and for making decisions necessary to preserve the integrity of the prosecution." Weiss also denying retaliating against the whistleblowers. This as Hunter Biden recently entered a plea deal on two misdemeanor tax charges, also admitting to a gun charge where he is expected to avoid prison time for all of that. Jesse Weber, NewsNation legal analyst, here with me right now. Jesse, good morning to you. I know Weiss is doubling down in this letter to investigators, saying it's not been compromised in any way, but that doesn't just settle it then, right?
No, I don't think he settles everybody's concerns, because it's an interesting letter, right? You're right. He doubles down on his authority. He talks about what he would need to do, the process in order to bring charges in other jurisdictions. But there are a lot of things that he doesn't say. He doesn't say that he had a conflict with other prosecutors about bringing a decision. He doesn't talk about having a conversation with Merrick Garland about becoming a special attorney or special counsel. He basically talks about the procedure behind it. And he also clearly doesn't come out and say, "We fully investigated Hunter Biden. This is everything that we found." Not surprising. It's an ongoing criminal investigation. So I don't know if people are going to look at this letter and if they have concerns that this was a politically motivated investigation or he stopped short of fully bringing other charges, if their concerns are going to be alleviated based on this letter. But I'll tell you what he does do. He is very clear that he is sharply against any kind of claim that there was retaliation against the IRS whistleblower or the IRS supervisory agent. And he's willing to speak in front of these committees and say there was nothing like that going on.
So somebody is not being truthful here, or at least 100% truthful as to what happened, the interpretation of what happened. Those IRS whistleblowers saying, you know, a number of things, one of which is Hunter Biden didn't pay any taxes on income he earned from Ukraine, things like that. But Jim Jordan and House Republicans certainly not satisfied with this letter from Weiss.
Yeah, I don't know if I would come out and say is someone lying, but I mean, could that be a possibility? Sure. Another possibility is there is just a drastic different interpretation about how this investigation should have gone and whether or not something should have been looked at more fully. And maybe when the Hunter Biden investigation is fully closed, David Weiss can speak more fully about it and his decisions not to prosecute. Remember, sometimes there's a difference in opinion upon what law enforcement believes that the charges should be, what the public should think the charges should be. But in order to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt, that's the purview of a prosecutor. And it's not so simple. It may look on the face like someone committed a crime, and maybe it looks that way. And you could say maybe beyond, more likely than not, but beyond a reasonable doubt, do you have all the evidence? That's why you have to kind of defer to the prosecutors. And I'll say this one last thing about David Weiss. He is a Trump appointed prosecutor, right? He stayed on even after Biden took office. So it's very hard to look at the outset and say, this was politically motivated. He was trying to protect Hunter Biden. Now, again, he hasn't fully come out and said that he was blocked in any way, but he has given no indication at this point that he was.
That is a very interesting point, because I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, you know, the worst, or presuming that there was some political motivation here. But good point. Could he be subpoenaed? Can the House actually compel his testimony here?
Yes, but they're going to be very limited in what they get. Because let's say he speaks in front of them, these various committees, and let's say even it's a closed door session. I imagine his answer to many questions will be, I cannot talk about that. This is an ongoing investigation. And he has every right to say that. It's his responsibility to say that. I don't care if you're on the right or the left, whatever investigation it is, you're really not supposed to say something that could compromise an active investigation. And he said it's still active in the Hunter Biden case. There's a current criminal case that's going on. I know that it's going to ultimately end with Hunter Biden getting a favorable treatment, but at the same time, they might not get the answers that they're looking for, although it seems that he will be able to say something about those retaliation claims.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.